Excel is not a database. Stop pretending it is. When you wire Power Apps to a spreadsheet and call it production, you're building a glass elevator and acting shocked when it shatters under traffic. Here's what's actually at stake. Data loss that nobody notices until quarter end, concurrency chaos that rewrites history, and a governance black hole auditors can drive a truck through. The truth? You're confusing a calculator with a control system. I'll tear down the myth, show the correct path, and hand you a migration plan. And there's one decision that prevents 80% of failures. We'll get to that. First, why this matters before your next outage. Why this matters. Cost of confusion. Okay, so basically the cost of confusion starts with pretending flexibility equals reliability. Excel is flexible because it lets anyone do anything. Dataverse is reliable because it refuses to. That refusal saves you money. Why this matters? Every time a spreadsheet stands in for a database, you import risk. Hidden risk, missed decimals, copied headers, rogue formulas, small errors that propagate like kudzu. You don't see the cost until you reconcile reports and discover two versions of truth. The average user shrugs. Finance does not. The confusion tag shows up three ways: data loss, concurrency, and governance. Data loss isn't always dramatic, it's often boring. Someone pastes values over formulas to speed it up, truncates a column because the view is narrow, or saves a filtered subset and emails it as the latest. Silent corruption. The system doesn't scream because Excel isn't a system, it's a grid with math. Concurrency is where the comedy turns expensive. Shared workbook, multiple editors, OneDrive sync jitter, last save wins. Two people fix the same customer row, credit terms updated here, address corrected there, and the final file blesses whichever save landed last. That's not a transaction, that's roulette. And your Power App connected to that file, it serves stale data, then overwrites new data, then acts surprised. ACID transactions aren't optional in multi-user apps. They're the guardrails that keep reality coherent. Governance is the black hole. No schema enforcement means columns morph from text to number at the speed of a paste. No required fields means blanks stroll right into your pipeline. No relationships means you retype foreign keys and hope typos behave. No audit trail means you can't answer the simplest question: who changed what, when, and why. Regulators love that. So do internal fraudsters and well-meaning chaos agents. Here's what most people miss. The tool you love for analysis is terrible as a backbone. Excel is the ancestor, fast, familiar, forgiving. Dataverse is the spine, structured, relational, transactional. It's not just a different storage option. It's a different philosophy. Excel assumes you're a careful human. Dataverse assumes you're busy, distracted, and occasionally wrong. And it builds fences accordingly. The costs scale fast. Reporting integrity collapses when column types drift. Compliance risk spikes when sensitive data lives in a desktop file, then in an email, then in a shared folder with everyone access. Downtime isn't just an outage. It's the hours your team spends reconciling duplicated lists, patching broken formulas, and explaining to leadership why the dashboard changed by itself. It didn't. You did that. Everything clicked when I realized Excel is a calculator with a grid. You model, you explore, you prototype. Fantastic. But the moment multiple users enter, edit, and rely on that data operationally, you need a system that enforces rules even when you're tired. In other words, Dataverse. The aha moment. A database doesn't trust you. It validates, constrains, and logs. It forces relationships instead of trusting lookup. It gives you role-based access control so finance can update credit limits but can't see HR notes. It writes an audit trail because memory is not a control. Excel gives you none of that by design. It's why you love it. It's why it fails. The stakes? Real money. Data loss forces rework. Concurrency creates contradictory records that erode customer trust. Governance gaps turn into fines, breach notifications, and board-level meetings you do not want. The counterintuitive part is that moving to Dataverse feels slower at first. You define tables, relationships, choices, business rules. You set security roles and auditing. You think all I wanted was a simple app. And yes, that's the point. Simple is a user experience, not a data strategy. So before your next outage, accept the premise. Excel can track. Dataverse must govern. Hold that thought. Now we'll step on the three failures you keep stepping on and then replace them with something that actually holds under pressure. The three fatal failures: data loss, concurrency, governance. Here's what most people miss. Data loss in Excel rarely looks like a dramatic explosion. It looks like a polite, quiet subtraction. The decimal that vanishes because the cell was formatted as text. The import that truncates at 255 characters because someone picked the wrong data type in a wizard. The column name that changes from customer ID to customer ID because someone hates underscores. And suddenly every formula points at air. Excel doesn't validate your reality. It nods, smiles, and proceeds. The simple version is this. There's no enforced schema, no constraints, no referential integrity. Think of a database as a bouncer checking IDs. Excel is the side door propped open with a chair. You can paste 9 digits into a field that's supposed to hold 10. You can delete a parent row and strand children that still reference it. You can import a CSV with more rows than your clever range noticed, and your app stops seeing 12% of the world. No alarms, no errors, just the slow, invisible drift of truth. Here's the weird part. Even when you're careful, Excel's convenience is your enemy. Copy-paste values only to speed things up. You just froze a living calculation. Rename a sheet tab? Your Power Query steps break 3 layers downstream. Use find and replace to fix a code pattern. Congratulations, you also changed the middle of every part number containing that sequence. That's not malice. That's the absence of a contract between your intent and the data. Let's make it painfully concrete. 2 users fix the same row. One updates the credit limit from 10,000 to 15,000 after a phone call with sales. The other corrects the shipping address to include the missing suite number. Both save. Last save wins blesses whichever edit landed last. The other edit? Obliterated. In your app, the record now has the new address and the old credit limit, or vice versa, depending on the sync lottery. There's no merge, no row-level locking, no transaction that bundles both edits as a single truth. But we turned on co-authoring in OneDrive. Cute! That's text-level reconciliation, not ACID guarantees. And yes, ACID matters. Atomicity means both edits commit or neither does. Consistency means the data obeys rules before and after. Isolation means simultaneous edits don't bleed into each other. Durability means once it's saved, it stays saved. Excel offers none of that. It offers good luck. The Power App connected to that file inherits the chaos, stale reads, conflicting writes, and overwrite races that turn history into a choose-your-own adventure. Now governance, the black hole where accountability goes to die. No schema means columns can morph by accident. No relationships means there's nothing forcing a valid customer on an order. No required fields means phone can be empty until you need to call. No audit means you can't answer who changed this without walking around asking humans to remember. No role-based access means the intern can see salary notes, because the file has one permission: whoever got the link. And do not wave version history at me like it's an audit log. A blob-level version is not a field-level change record. Compliance exposure is not theoretical. Sensitive data in a spreadsheet travels by email, gets saved to desktop, reappears in a personal OneDrive. DLP doesn't see it until it's already everywhere. Try convincing an auditor that your customer list with birth dates in a tab called Old was adequately protected because the folder had a read-only sign. Excel doesn't implement policy, it politely ignores it. Nobody explains this right, but the governance failure creates a culture of personal copies, just in case. So now you have the mothership file, 3 personal forks, a CSV used for a monthly import, and a SharePoint copy for reporting. Which one is real? All of them, until something breaks. Then none of them. This is how reporting integrity erodes, even if each person was careful. The truth, treating Excel like a database is not frugality, it's deferred pain. Data loss is a feature of the medium, concurrency is a coin flip, governance is theater. Enter Dataverse, not because Microsoft likes selling you new nouns, but because you need a spine that enforces contracts, mediates edits, and remembers everything. We'll build that next. Enter Dataverse, what it is, why it wins. Enter Dataverse, not a nicer spreadsheet. A data platform that behaves like an adult. It's the spine your app's attached to, so the body stands up even when users lean on it. Centralized governance first, because that's where Excel politely bowed out. In Dataverse, you define tables, columns, data types, relationships, and validation once, and the platform enforces them every time. You want an account table and a contact table with a one-to-many relationship? You don't beg users to keep IDs consistent. You create a lookup. You want a choice field so status can only be new, active, or closed? You define it and lock it. You want business rules like credit limit must be greater than 0 if status is active? You don't write a memo, you write a rule. The difference is stark. Dataverse is a contract, not a suggestion. Security isn't who has the file link. It's role-based access control that maps to actual responsibilities. Build security roles, sales, finance, support with table-level permissions, row ownership, and field-level visibility. Make salary notes readable by HR only while everyone else sees a neat blank column. Layer teams over roles, so access follows organizational structure instead of improvisation. Add column-level security for truly sensitive attributes. And yes, enable audit logs that capture who changed what, when, from what to what. That's not a retroactive version history. That's accountability baked in. Data quality becomes proactive. Use required fields, regex style constraints, and calculated columns to keep data consistent at entry, not in a cleanup day 6 months later. The duplication rules stop you from creating Contoso LLC, and Contoso as 3 different customers because someone was in a hurry. Power Automate brings discipline. Run validation flows, send approvals, kick off notifications, and apply the same rule 1,000 times without relying on remember to do it. Scalability, Excel gasps at volume and concurrency. Dataverse expects it. It's built for multi-user, high-velocity writes with server-side logic, indexes, and query optimization. Your Canvas apps can still paint the custom UI you crave, but the engine underneath is model-driven. Relationships enforced, forms generated, processes orchestrated. And yes, model-driven apps are responsive out of the box, so you don't spend a weekend nudging pixel-perfect layouts that collapse on mobile. Auditability changes the culture. Flip on auditing at the table or column level and you get a time-stamped ledger of changes. Need to know who changed credit limit from 15,000 to 5,000 at 3:12 p.m.? It's there. Need change history for compliance? Also there. Enable change tracking to power incremental loads and integrations without repulling the universe. And when inevitably someone asks for rollback, point to backups and point-in-time restore. Memory isn't a control. Dataverse logs are. Minimizing downtime during migration is not magic. It's planning supported by platform features. You can run phased migrations, stage the schema, load historical data, dual run for a period, then cut over with a timed freeze. If the cutover goes sideways, have rollback criteria defined and tested. You're not hoping the spreadsheet is close enough. You're executing a plan with guardrails, environments for dev, test, and prod, solutions for transport, and a clear promotion path that doesn't rely on right-click copy. Here's the truth, the marketing slides almost say out loud. Model-driven strength plus canvas flexibility is the sweet spot. Use model-driven for the core data interactions that demand consistency. Standard forms, related records, business process flows. Layer canvas pages for the oddball UI where speed and specificity matter. A barcode scanner, a dashboard, a kiosk-style intake screen. One data brain, Dataverse, feeding both experiences so you never play which version is real again. Security and compliance certifications exist for a reason. You get encryption at rest and in transit, data loss prevention policies across tenants and environments, and integration with Microsoft Entra for identity. That's not just comfort, it's audit evidence. Map that to your governance policy and stop pretending a shared folder with do not touch counts as control. Integration is adult too. Use virtual tables to surface external data without duplicating it, or use data flows and Power Query to shape and import on a schedule. Trigger Power Automate flows on create, update, delete, so downstream systems stay in sync without a ritual of CSV exports. And when analytics scale questions arrive, Dataverse doesn't demand monastic purity, it extends. Export to Fabric Lakehouse for big analytics, keep operational rights in Dataverse, and let Power BI speak to both without duct tape. Everything here exists to fix the failures we outlined. Dataverse enforces contracts, mediates edits with transactions, and remembers changes with an audit trail. It's not faster to set up than dragging a file into a connector. It's faster to live with. That's the difference between a hobby project and an operational system. And because I can feel you about to ask, yes, when your current world lives in Excel, there's a path out that doesn't torch your week. We'll take it next. The correct migration strategy from Excel to Dataverse. Here's the path out, structured, predictable, and blessedly boring. We'll keep your users working while we move the data from clever spreadsheet to actual system. Preparation first, inventory the chaos. List every Excel file feeding your app, location, owner, consumers, refresh cadence, and how it's used, reference, entry, or reporting. Classify sensitivity, public, internal, confidential, restricted. Note row counts and tabs that are actually separate entities masquerading as sheets. Identify calculated columns you'll replace with Dataverse calculated fields or business rules. Then pick a scope you can win. One business process, not your entire company. Modeling next. Translate sheets into tables, columns, and relationships. One entity per real-world noun, account, contact, order, product. Use proper data types, numbers as numbers, dates as dates, choices for controlled vocabularies, lookups for relationships. Avoid overnormalization. 2 or 3 levels deep is fine. Building an academic ERD museum is not. Add required fields where reality demands them, and define alternate keys for natural identifiers you'll use during imports. Now choose your import path. If you need transformations, splitting columns, mapping codes, fixing types, use data flows with Power Query. It's repeatable, schedulable, and keeps your logic in one place. If the spreadsheet is already clean and flat, direct import works for a first load. If users insist on working in Excel during a transition, the Dataverse add-in lets them push changes under rules instead of emailing attachments. The simple version: pick the path that moves logic out of human hands and into a pipeline. Before you touch production, validate. Profile the data, blanks where required, invalid formats, duplicates by key, orphans that reference non-existent parents. Build the dupe logic, standardize casing, trim white space, normalize punctuation, then define match rules that won't eat cousins for twins. Load into a dev environment first, reconcile counts and checksums, spot check critical records, then break it on purpose. Try to insert a bad value, violate a relationship, or bypass a required field. The system should say no loudly. Security setup is not optional homework, it's the core deliverable. Define roles for who can read, create, write, append, and delete by table. Layer teams, so access follows org structure. Apply column-level security to sensitive attributes, salary, SSN, payment tokens. Use owner and business unit scopes to corral row-level visibility. And yes, default to least privilege. The give everyone everything shortcut is how you re-import risk. Turn on the memory. Enable auditing at the table and column level for the fields that matter: status, amounts, identities, dates. Enable change tracking to support downstream syncs without full reloads. Configure automatic backups and validate point-in-time restore. If you can't prove you can go back, you didn't finish the job. Plan your cutover like an operation with instruments counted. Phased migration beats heroics. Step 1. Deploy the schema to dev test, then prod using solutions. Step 2. Preload historical data into prod while your Excel app still runs. Step 3. Schedule a freeze window, communicated, during which Excel is view only. Step 4. Delta load recent changes. Step 5. Switch your app's data source to Dataverse and dual run for a defined period with read-only access to old data. Step 6. Declare success or roll back based on objective criteria. Data reconciliation thresholds, performance and error rates, user sign-offs. If you don't predefine rollback triggers, you'll invent them mid-panic. Communication cadence matters. Tell people what will change, when and how they'll work during the freeze. Provide a one-page what moved where guide and a hotline for the first week. Train the few who need to adjust habits, like entering a required field that used to be optional. People can adapt, surprises cannot. 2 quick tactics to avoid pain. First, keep identifiers stable. Introduce a durable surrogate key in Dataverse and map Excel's natural key to an alternate key for upserts that prevents duplicates during staged loads. Second, retire the spreadsheet deliberately. Archive it to a secure location, lock it, and publish a clear statement. Dataverse is the source of truth. Excel extracts are read-only and ephemeral. The payoff: your app now writes to a platform that enforces rules, mediates edits, and remembers changes. You didn't move a file. You replaced a habit with a system. And if you're about to ask how this fits the broader data landscape, operational versus analytical, we'll expand the architecture next. When Dataverse isn't enough, Fabric, Lakehouse, and SQL. The truth: Dataverse is your operational backbone, not your planetary brain. When the questions shift from update this record safely to model 2 years of clickstream against revenue by region, you've crossed into analytics land. Different physics. Stop trying to bench press a warehouse with an app database. Start with a simple decision tree. If the workload is operational, CRUD, workflows, approvals, near real-time views for teams, Dataverse is home. If the workload is analytical, big joins, historical snapshots, large aggregates across millions or billions of rows, enter Microsoft Fabric and the Lakehouse. If the workload is specialized OLTP with extreme transaction rates or legacy app dependencies, SQL Server or Azure SQL belongs with Dataverse optionally as the app-facing layer. Dataverse plus Fabric Lakehouse is the clean pattern. Keep master data and operational truth in Dataverse. Use OneLake to land curated, governed exports for analytics at scale. Power BI sits natively on the Lakehouse, chewing through history without throttling your app. Compare that to overworking Dataverse with giant reports. You'll throttle API limits, annoy users, and still deliver sluggish dashboards. Operational data serves today, analytical data serves trends. Integration patterns matter. Virtual tables let Dataverse read from external stores without duplicating data. Use them to surface reference data or legacy system records inside your app while keeping the source authoritative. For analytics, avoid round-tripping. Push data out on a schedule via data flows, Synapse link for Dataverse or Fabric pipelines into OneLake, then model semantic layers in Power BI. That's push for analytics, virtualize for operational context. Pulling massive facts back into Dataverse is how you recreate Excel, just cloudier. SQL has a seat but not the throne. Use Azure SQL when you need stored procedures, doing tight transactional work, deterministic performance for line of business systems, or when an existing app's schema is immovable. You can front it with model-driven apps via virtual tables or connect Canvas apps directly. The key is architectural intent. Dataverse for unified security, auditing, and low-code app ergonomics. SQL for specialized transactional logic. Fabric for scale-out analytics. 3 tools, 1 playbook. Hybrid architecture is adult supervision. Master data in Dataverse with relationships, validation, and RBAC. Facts streamed or batch-loaded into Fabric Lakehouse for history, enrichment, and machine learning. Certain subsystems, pricing engines, MES, trading, run on SQL for deterministic transactional throughput. Glue it with Power Automate and Fabric pipelines, then document ownership and lineage so you don't grow a shadow Excel empire on the side. Who owns customer? Dataverse. Who owns 12 months of sales detail? Fabric. Who owns pricing algorithm state? SQL. Write it down, enforce it, and stop arguing in meetings. Guardrails so Excel doesn't re-emerge wearing a Power BI badge. First, no ad hoc CSVs as data sources in production. They can be staging at best. Short-lived, auditable, and deleted. Second, centralize semantic models in Power BI with certified datasets. Outlaw personal data models feeding executive dashboards. Third, lineage, or it didn't happen. Every dataset maps back to Dataverse tables, pipelines, or SQL sources with documented transforms. Finally, governance policies, DLP for environments, OneLake access via security groups, and CI/CD for pipelines and models. If you're still emailing extracts just for a quick check, you've already backslid. Everything here keeps the promise. Dataverse governs operations, Fabric scales insight, SQL handles specialized transactions. Use the spine where a spine belongs and the warehouse where gravity is different. Your 10-step migration plan you can draft today. You've got the why and the what. Now we make it unavoidable with a plan you can start drafting before your next meeting ends. 10 steps, no heroics, just adult supervision. Step 1. Map current Excel assets, owners, consumers, prioritize by risk. Inventory is not glamorous, it's necessary. List every spreadsheet that feeds or pretends to feed production, where it lives, who owns it, who uses it, and what decisions depend on it. Note row counts, tabs that are really entities, refresh cadence, and whether it's reference data, entry, or reporting. Tag sensitivity, public, internal, confidential, restricted, then rank by blast radius, which file, if wrong or unavailable, hurts you the most. That's your starting cue. Step 2. Define entities, keys, relationships, decide choices versus lookups. Translate the business nouns into tables. Accounts, contacts, orders, products. Spare me the "we're unique" myth. For each table, define a primary key. Use GUIDs as surrogate keys in Dataverse and identify natural keys as alternate keys for upserts like account number. Map relationships explicitly, one-to-many from account to contact, many-to-many where reality demands it. Use choices for controlled vocabularies, status, region, category. Use lookups for relationships. No, a text field that usually matches is not a relationship. Step 3. Security model sketch, roles, teams, column security for sensitive fields. Design access like an adult. Create roles aligned to functions. Sales, finance, ops, HR, with create, read, write, append to, and delete rights scoped per table. Use teams to mirror org structure so people inherit access by membership, not by hope. Apply column-level security to fields like salary, SSN, credit card tokens, or confidential notes. Decide ownership model, user-owned versus organization-owned, based on whether records should be private by default. Least privilege is not optional, it's the baseline. Step 4. Data quality rules, required fields, patterns, dedup logic, referential checks. Move the rules out of human memory and into the platform. Mark must have fields as required at the table level. Add format constraints for IDs, emails, phone numbers. If it should match a pattern, say so. Define deduplication rules for accounts and contacts that consider normalized names, emails, and phone numbers. Trim spaces, standardize casing, remove punctuation before comparing. Enforce referential integrity with relationship rules, so you cannot create an order without a valid account. The system should reject nonsense at entry, not after a quarterly cleanse. Step 5. Build Dataverse schema in dev, seed with sample data. Create your tables, columns, relationships, choices, business rules, and calculated fields in a development environment. Don't do this live. Seed with a small representative sample, dozens or hundreds, not thousands, so you can see how forms render, how lookups behave, and where your rules bite. This is where you find out that notes needs 1,000 characters, not 200, and that status should be a choice, not free text. Adjust now, not during cutover. Step 6. Choose import path. Configure data flows, Power Query transformations. Pick the pipe that matches the mess. If your Excel needs transformation, split columns, fix types, map codes, use data flows with Power Query. Make the steps explicit and repeatable, scheduled if needed. If the sheet is already clean and flat, use direct import for the initial load. If users must keep entering data in Excel during transition, use the Dataverse add-in so their changes flow through the rules, not around them. The adult rule, logic belongs in a pipeline, not in someone's quick tips post-it. Step 7. Validate loads. Reconciliation reports, spot check audit and permissions. Load into dev. Reconcile counts per table and per key. Run exception reports for duplicates, orphans, and invalid formats. Then fix the source or the transform. Promote to a test environment and validate again. Produce a reconciliation report that a non-technical stakeholder can read. We expected 18,942 accounts. We loaded 18,941, one duplicate suppressed by rule. Spot check audit logs to confirm changes are tracked. Test security by logging in as each role. See only what you should and fail where you must. Step 8. Pilot with a model-driven skeleton. Canvas where UX demands it. Stand up a model-driven app against your Dataverse schema. You'll get forms, views, and related records out of the box that respect your relationships and rules. Use that for core operations. Add Canvas pages only where UX specificity matters. Scanning, dashboards, kiosk intake. Resist the urge to redesign everything pixel by pixel on day one. Function first, fancy later. The pilot proves that the data model is right because the app behaves even under people who don't read instructions. Step 9. Cutover plan, freeze window, dual run, rollback, communication script. Write the playbook before you play. Announce a freeze window where Excel becomes read only. Preload historical data to prod ahead of time. During the freeze, delta load new changes. Switch the app's data source to Dataverse. Dual run for a defined period with read-only access to the old file for comparison. Define objective rollback criteria, data variance thresholds, error rates, performance baselines, user sign-offs if you hit a red line rollback. No heroics, no sunk cost pride. Also, script the comms. What's changing, when, what users do differently, and where to get help. Surprises are failures of planning, not fate. Step 10. Post-migration, monitoring, backups, audit review, Excel access deprecation. You're not done at cutover, you're done when operations are boring. Monitor key metrics. Record creation rates, error logs, API consumption, and performance. Confirm automatic backups are running. Test point-in-time restore in a sandbox so you can sleep. Review audit logs weekly at first. Spot outliers, confirm sensitive fields aren't being edited by the wrong roles. Deprecate Excel access intentionally. Archive the old files to a secure locked location. Publish an access policy that states the source of truth is Dataverse. Exports are temporary and read-only. Remove old connections from apps and flows so nobody silently backslides. Close loop, the one decision that prevents 80% of failures. Centralize the data model in Dataverse first. Not in a Canvas app, not in Power Query, not in a well-meaning spreadsheet. The model, tables, relationships, rules, and security lives in Dataverse. Everything else plugs into that reality. Make that decision, and most of the chaos you've normalized simply can't occur. You know what to do next. Draft the inventory, draw the model, pick the pipeline, and schedule the freeze. You're replacing a habit with a system. That's how grown-ups do data. Conclusion: the spine, not the spreadsheet. The takeaway is simple. Excel tracks, Dataverse governs, and governance is what keeps truth intact when humans get busy. If this saved you from another quick fix disaster, lock in your upgrade path. Subscribe, turn on alerts, and watch the Dataverse modeling walkthrough next. Draft your migration plan today, inventory, model, pipeline, cutover, and execute before the next outage makes the decision for you. Entropy wins by default. Choose structure.